So there's a misconception that if you're single, you are incomplete, perhaps damaged, salvaged, and you won't be happy until you find your one. And that is not true. That is bullshit. It is a message that has been fed to us by media and advertising. The truth is, when you're single, you have the richest soil for growth. That's why I created this podcast. And unlike other podcasts, this one is host-driven, not guest-driven. That means I will be rotating health and wellness experts 3 times a week to give you the giant box of wellness crayons, not just the primary colors, so you can start building a meaningful life. It's time to give singlehood a cape. You're going to love today's host because her category is adventure. And I added adventure because every time that I was single, adventure was injected and prescribed, and it really helped me pull myself out of the trenches. Sarah Williams is a professional photographer, adventurer, and guide, and she believes that our connection to nature is vital and sets out to inspire others to discover and strengthen that relationship. She pushes the boundaries of her body and mind in the pursuit of unique life experiences. Get this, she was marooned for 6 days in an underground cave with no food or light, with the challenge of navigating out. She also spent 4 months walking the length of New Zealand. 4 months walking with just a few handful of supplies in a backpack. And she's also an alpinist who summited the tallest mountain in North America, unguided, Denali. Sarah aims to empower the rising generation through example and documentation to cultivate internal strength, creativity, and a love of the unknown in order to explore and ultimately protect the world we live in. She is going to be hosting from wherever she's at. So this episode may be from the top of a mountain, or she may be submerged in ice, or she may be, I don't know, walking across the desert or something, which I think is awesome and makes her episodes really interesting. Anyway, enjoy Sarah Williams.
Before we start, though, Sarah, let's just not pull any fucking punches about what we're really doing here. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Because that's how we fucking start every show.
That is,
right?
You're absolutely right. You're 1000% right.
Let's not be afraid to tell us who's in the house. Not your mama's.
Not your mama's therapy. We're here. This is a very special episode for us. John Kim, the angry therapist, is giving people a chance to use his platform to share their message, and that's why we're here. When you first told me about this opportunity, I was like, there's no fucking way. How am I going to make dick jokes? How am I going to?
You just did.
And I was like, Lair, I'm going to have to tone it down. And you were like, absolutely not.
No, it's off brand for us to tone it down. It's like you said in the first episode, you're like, I want our listeners to wonder why our podcast was included in the therapy section. Right? Isn't that what that's what we're going for?
It really is. I record every episode with the one singular goal, and that goal is to make Ashley, your wife, fear that you're going to lose your license.
Or just not be invited places anymore. Remember when she was afraid I wasn't going to be able to speak at the Low Country Mental Health because of one of our shows? That's what we're doing.
Guess what?
Yeah.
You still did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The pirates are actually here now.
Listen.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. We're here. We're doing this. We're going to talk about jealousy today.
All right.
Which I'm really excited for. Because jealousy is something that I feel deep inside of me, particularly when I look at your wife and how hot she is. But
I use that a lot. And people are jealous of me. They're like, how did you end up with her? Is frankly what they do. Yeah. I see their jealousy. Yeah. They're like, really?
I don't know how you couldn't.
Right. Well, I always say it's low self-esteem. That's why she picked me. She has low self-esteem. All the
That
trauma.
can't be it.
No.
That can't be it.
No, it's not. But, look, this is, if John doesn't understand, this is the preamble to all of our shows. Our producer, Lindsay, is constantly like, okay, I have to fast forward and clip out the 7 minutes of wheeze-laughing.
Yes, 1,000%.
To get to the meat of it. But don't clip out at all, because it does add a little color and flavor to our show.
Listen, I just like to think people are laughing with us for 7 minutes.
Yeah. And then they get tired.
We know Norway is.
You know what? That's right.
Norway is laughing along with us.
The Norwegians are loving us. I think that's so great. We're just international podcasters now. But anyway, so yeah, let's talk about
jealousy.
Mm-hmm,
yeah, because there's different kinds of jealousy, right? I'm sure you see it all the time, where it's like, on the one hand, there's some good jealousy out there, and then but it can get real toxic real fast. And I really want to like explore what that line is, like where you are like, it's okay if, people think your wife is a smoke show. They should. That one feels
fine to me. I'm good with that. Yeah. Yeah. Look at me go. They just apparently, yeah. He's got something. We don't know what it is.
Right. And then there's the jealousy where it's like, you can't go out because I don't want people to see you, or things like that.
That's a fair point. That is actually seriously the line where it becomes particularly toxic, and where we start seeing other symptomatic pieces that come up that sort of need to be dealt with. And we could talk about jealousy within romantic relationships. We can also talk about jealousy and all the other forms of relationship, friendships, people within our industries, people at work, right? So the green eye actually does raise its head in so many areas of our lives. But when we're talking about jealousy within a romantic relationship that can actually be somewhat helpful, it's when it's mild and, fairly non-recurrent. It's something that we can feel. It's a momentary pang. And it often comes, with you see your partner perhaps getting noticed by someone else. And you see that look at yours. Now I'm going to share.
Tell me more.
Yeah. So no, actually it happens with me.
Okay.
It happens. No, it happens for Ash. She's the one who tends to get a little more jealous.
Really?
And yeah, it's true. Oddly enough.
Does she own a mirror? Like, what is she?
I know. And look at this. This face is like the Island of Misfit Toys. Right? This nose has lived on one side of my face from 1 year to the next.
And how do you walk around as Ashley and feel jealous of anything?
Well,
how?
She does. And I can tell you that there are times when I receive the benefits of that. And I think you know what I'm talking about.
Listen,
it gets her fired up.
Yeah, I mean, there is a vaginal claiming that has to happen.
Well, yes, right. She's essentially peeing on my tree. She's going to kill me for this one, by the way. She's going to kill us both.
We're
dead
both
too.
Getting divorced.
Oh, totally.
From Ash.
Yeah, no, but like this is an example of just that type of, if we'll claim it sort of as good jealousy. It sort of lights those fires and it keeps that tension. Esther Perel and her book, Mating in Captivity, sort of the old tome of sexual longevity within a relationship. She talks about this very thing. And I talk about it in my book as well. And I cite her where I talk about familiarity, right? We all can, if we're going to be in relationships that span the course of many, many years, we can become victims of familiarity. And what that is it's this thing that we rush to because familiarity gives us safety. We know this person. We kind of lock them down, and we don't have that fear of abandonment so much anymore. We get a few kids and maybe a mortgage and a car payment, and we have the vestiges of familiarity. And it's this thing that we rush to, but it's also this thing that can be the killer of so much sexual tension and curiosity within a relationship. It kind of gets to this place of been there, done that. And a lot of couples in my practice and a lot of couples that I see come running in after the dopamine blast of new love is over, familiarity can set in. And we get that sort of been there, done that. And one of the things that Perel talks about in her book is essentially I don't know if she would put it this way, but when I read it, it was like, oh, you're sort of prescribing a little positive jealousy, which is she cites different cultures in Europe, like in France and in Spain, where just make sure I have my do not disturb on, sorry. And cultures in France and in Spain that will actually, cultures in France and in Spain, which will actually sort of the culture sort of has cultural approval for there to be another, a third or a fourth. So your partner knows that you have somebody kind of waiting in the wings, a lover. And a lot of times sometimes it's open relationships, sometimes it's don't ask, don't tell, but they have this other person and both kind of know about it. And what that does in Perel's estimation is it creates a level of tension that keeps this tension that gets lost in the familiar. And so this is one of the things that she will prescribe almost, that this is how you can keep sexual tension. Any thoughts on that?
There'd be a lot of dead people in my relationship. I mean, that's
so not
someone
for
in
you.
the wings.
Yeah,
You don't got wings no more, Corey.
This is over. Well,
no, I mean, I can see and it's interesting because I have polyamorous friends and and it's a very healthy system for them. And then there's me where Corey is like, a woman talked to me at work and I told her that my wife will kill her if she keeps doing that.
Really? So you feel that like that's a thing for you, like you get a little territorial.
I mean, I do get territorial and I absolutely do get jealous. It's not quite that bad, but like I also have a husband who has a low opinion of himself. And so he is wildly uncomfortable when he's flirted with by someone other than me. So like when it happens, he usually comes to me like I'm this Catholic priest in the confessional, and he's like, babe, something happened at work today. Or something. This girl was talking to me and I didn't know what she was doing. And I was like, babe, she was flirting with you.
And this is when you start fucking with him because you know how uncomfortable he is.
Exactly. See, it's like you're right there with me.
I'm just going to move in. Just run a feed all day. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I absolutely do fuck with him. But, I know that he has experienced similar where it's like, someone at the gym or something like that is talking to me and I'll say something. But what's sweet about the way he handles it is he's like, babe, see, look at you. That's awesome. Like,
I love that. Yeah.
So I'm toxic.
Well, you're borderline toxic for sure. Like,
Listen, I am tickling the taint of toxicity when it comes to
control and possessiveness. Right.
Well, how are you with Ashley? Like I'm sure she gets looked at all the time.
She does. And so I've often had to, stupid, but I've often had to hearken to that song, When You're in Love with a Beautiful Woman. It's an old one, but it's a good one. And it sort of outlines like, yeah, man, you got to be prepared for that. You have to prepare your nervous system for, people are going to look. And, more than anything, I'm just concerned about her safety, and I'm concerned about how particular men can be. And, I've always sort of been that way with women. My mom was a single mom, and I remember the first time Ashley ever experienced like how protective I can be. She was dancing on the bar at Brother Jimmy's. Mm-hmm. And, that's what the girls did at our bar that we worked at. And she was pouring shots into people's mouths, and it was crazy honky tonk place. And this guy started rubbing her leg. And then this other arm came from betwixt her feet from behind the bar and grabbed this guy by the arm and put a finger in his face and said, "You can fucking look, but you can't touch." And that finger belonged to me.
I believe you.
And
spoiler alert.
Yeah. And then we were in Brother Jimmy's again, and she had just started managing, and she was standing outside the bar, and the New York Yankees were in there celebrating a World Series win. They hadn't won it yet, but they were on their way to winning it. I forget what year this was, but it was a bar that was not uncommon for people to come in. And there she was. She's sort of fresh off the boat, sort of corn cob from Texas in New York City. And this guy's touching her, and I can see the visible discomfort in her face. Now, we were sort of together, but we were more friends. But I'm not going to lie to you, I was a little jealous. And
I bet.
And so I saw the discomfort in her face. And so I walked directly over to them, and he had his hands like on her hips. And I stared right in his face and spoke to her, which was effective. I said, "No one gets to fucking touch you that you don't want fucking touching you. You know that, right?" And the guy immediately let her go and walked away. And, so that was certainly energized by a level of jealousy that I had. Like, you're touching this girl that I'm pretty into.
Right. It's the two like strong pillars of your personality, protectiveness and a bit of jealousy coming together and working, which I want to do a quick little like tangent. Lair and Ashley have an episode together where they talk about trauma on the Angry Therapist podcast as well. So definitely listen to that one, because I think trauma and jealousy aren't all that disconnected when you start getting into like some of the things that people experience. And, the story you just said, where it's like, I know Ashley's trauma. I know I want to keep her safe. And so, I'm moving in that direction with my life to make sure that she can feel that way, feel safe, while also making sure this guy knows.
Yeah, I was definitely flexing. I was flexing on a Yankee, which was, right after a World Series win. That's balling right there.
Listen, I'm not going to lie. When you told me that story, I felt a little tingle downstairs. Yeah. It was good. I liked it. Yeah. So when you're like in the office with your clients, and is there a time where you ever like try to prescribe a little jealousy or encourage a little jealousy? Or do you more often see the toxic side of things where you're trying to repair whatever is causing that toxicity?
I'll often see the not maybe not toxic. I mean, that does come in, but you'll see that control or possessiveness comes in. That's really not healthy for anybody. And what that's linked to is your self-esteem. And, I remember when I was a kid, it was one of my first real girlfriends. I had gone to college and she stayed back at high school, and she was a year younger than I. And she started dating this other dude. And dude, I mean, it just fucking destroyed me. And I was as jealous as anybody could possibly be. And I remember my mother came in, she sat down next to me and she said, "I'm going to tell you something. people are going to do what they're going to do, and they're not going to do what they're not going to do. And nobody yelling and screaming is going to stop that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it was about that homespun wisdom that really landed on me, but I sort of took that and ran and kind of realized that, and then started working on my self-esteem. And I noticed that as my self-esteem got better and better, it doesn't eradicate all jealousy. But, you know, I too was in that sort of young male, possessive, controlling, perhaps, you know, type of jealousy that wasn't particularly helpful for anybody. You know, really working on myself, and again, my self-esteem was the thing that kind of pulled me out of that. So that's what I try to help my clients with, is that if a client is experiencing jealousy that seems unhelpful, yes, sure. If there's an opportunity to say, hey, you know, let's maybe we can kind of corral that over into eradicating some of the familiarity that's happened in your relationship. Great. But by and large, you know, they might not be able to handle that particular slippery slope. And I want to help them kind of deal with the bordering on toxic, not great jealousy that's now beginning to creep into their minds and into their relationship. Because very quickly, when someone hears that I'm jealous and they become controlling, well, you don't trust me.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's kind of how I see it happening in my client population. Now, it is an opportunity for me as a therapist to dig a little bit deeper into their personal work, because when you really drill down below the waterline, I think we quickly get to some of the things that I covered in the book. The book is called The Practice of Love. Rebuild patterns, rebuild trust, create a connection that lasts.
Get the audiobook.
Yeah. In that,
trust me,
in that book, I talk about, am I safe? Am I loved? Am I enough? And do I matter? And when jealousy sort of rings in that place that goes beyond like the thing that can be kind of helpful and kind of fun that we were talking about earlier in the podcast, it does tend to hit into one of these things. Like, you know, if someone's coming in and hitting on you at the gym, as an example, the reaction could very easily be, well, you know, I'm not particularly safe in the world. I've been abandoned before, or I've been cheated on, and I'm not loved. Or if I was enough, you wouldn't have. And if I mattered, as I like to say. So it sort of bumps into these pieces for me.
I think that's such a good point. And a big takeaway from this conversation is, you know, when you're getting to those toxic places of jealousy, it's really more about you and like where you were hurt. You know, when Corey and I first started dating, you know, as much as I joke about how I am now, I wasn't always like, I was legitimately toxic. I had been in a terrible relationship where it was abusive left and right. Corey and I started dating, you know, after that relationship ended, and I had learned a lot of bad behaviors during that relationship. I'd also learned a lot of really bad behaviors during my childhood with a dad who had toxic jealousy issues.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, I remember stories of like him, my dad, him like checking the house after a delivery to make sure the guy wasn't hiding in the closet or under the bed, like just ridiculous shit.
Oh my God. That's it. That's like, that's bordering into delusional.
Yeah. It was wild. But
having said that, I have seen your mother.
Dude, you don't got to fucking tell me. Listen, when we go out together, people are like, are you sisters? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah. And let's face it, she could kind of bone up on not dressing so slutty.
I've tried to have these conversations with her, but she says hoes don't get cold. So I just have to accept her for who she is.
But seriously, he would check the house?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
He'd check the house.
That is wild.
But then, you know, so you have that as you're growing up, you have this toxic relationship, abusive relationship. Then you get into something where, you know, Corey and I obviously have done our own work throughout our relationship, which we'll be married 10 years next year. But I also had to reflect on my environment. So I worked in marketing. I worked at agencies. And one thing you learn when you start working at agencies is nobody's married, even if they're married.
Oh, like, really?
There's always affairs happening. There's always people sleeping with people that they work with because they're working crazy hours at work. And so you're around these people and, you know, whatever. And like, so I had a toxic foundation laid for me. And then my environment was just like, look, this is what people do. This is how people act. You can't trust anybody. And like, it took a while for me to get to a place where I was like able to accept the fact that I was the problem, but also to be able to have these conversations with Corey and be like, hey, I'm really feeling, you know, I had this conversation with him a couple months ago, actually, where I was like, I'm feeling really jealous. And he's like, why? Like, you know, and it's always that with him, sweet angel that he is. He is sweet. But it's always like that kind of situation. And so I think it's important to recognize the things that made you that way. And then that it's a you thing, but then it's kind of like how, you know, it's your practices. It's personal responsibility, you know, and then you get into like the narratives of like, what are you saying about your partner? What are you feeling about them? What have you manifested? And then you start having conversations with them because they're working with you, and you can say, there's this little part of me that's scared. And that's what it comes down to. Or there's this little part of me that doesn't want to share her toys. And that, you know, however that manifests. So I think it's such a good point you raised about how it starts delving into the personal work that you have to do.
Yeah. And look, I think it's fair to say that, like, no matter how much personal work you do and how good your self-esteem is, like, I'm by and large, to answer your question earlier, I don't get particularly jealous, even because I know that she's a pretty woman, and I know that men are going to look at her, men and women alike. And that's just kind of part of it. Again, I just want to make sure that no one's being creepy, no one's being weird. You get to take a look. If your gaze lingers, you may look up and see me staring at you, which isn't always fun. But I can tell you asked, like, do I ever get jealous? Because she's got some good ones, my wife. Like, I might not get jealous on the daily, but she's brought some real fun ones to the table.
Oh, okay. This one. Give me the tea.
So we were just together, really. Like, no one really even knew in the bar that we were really together, because it's kind of where we were all the time. We worked there. But it was this bar, as I said, the Yankees came there, and various celebrities would come in all of the time. And this one time, well, NSYNC, the band NSYNC used to come there all the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So much so that, like, Lance Bass was a groomsman at one of my best friend's weddings.
Oh my God!
So they were there all the time. They would go and literally play. They would play Madison Square Garden, and then they would come and, like, dance on the bar at Brother Jimmy's, and work behind the bar with us. And so this one night, Justin Timberlake had taken a fancy to her. And to this day, she's like, this is not true. And it's absolutely fucking true. It's absolutely, I was there. I saw it. And believe me, I was watching. And so at the end of the night, we're kind of cleaning up, and they're still there because they like to hang out for after hours. Then they're all going out to a club, all the bartenders, some of the waitresses, and NSYNC. And as they're going out the door, Justin Timberlake turns to my then sort of girlfriend, now wife, and says, hey, come with us. Come on. And kind of gives her this little wink. And I'm like, you son of a bitch. And yeah. And I look at her and she looks at me and like, so I have to find some semblance of something, right? And I'm like, shit, I could feel my want to be an animal in this particular and protect what,
right.
But I couldn't do it because I also wanted to feel chosen. I wanted her to pick me.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's the other side. If you take up too much of the space and with your jealousy, you never actually give your partner the opportunity to pick you. Now, you also are taking the chance that they might not. That's bad information. It's information that you might not want, but it's information that you absolutely need. And so that's what I thought to myself. I was like, if she does this, then it tells me who she is. And so that's the way I was able to sort of quell my jealousy, even though it was up. And so I just looked at her and I kind of said, well, looks like someone has a choice to make. And I walked away. It's a true story. It's a true fucking story.
It's such a power move.
It's balls, right? Well? Yeah. Looks like someone's got a choice. And then you could hear my spurs clinking as I walked away. It's true.
Yeah, I literally just heard it in my brain. Chink, 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 walking away. Mm-hmm. So what happened? Did she fuck Justin Timberlake?
Bang the shit out of him. I'm not sure if my oldest is actually mine. I do notice he has a proclivity for music. Makes me a little nervous.
Oh my God.
No.
If you need a room to sleep in after Ashley listens to this.
Yeah, because I got another one in the barrel. Are you ready?
Oh my God, hit me.
Yeah, so this is the other big jealousy moment. And this is a good one, although I wouldn't tell two anecdotes in a row. I would want to move on to something else, but this is good. So we had gotten together and then we were taking this break. We'd broken up for various reasons that I won't get into. And we decided to take a break and we were probably broken up for about maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 weeks, ultimately. But within that 2 weeks, don't you know, fucking Ashley finds herself dating not just some schmo from the bar or some dude, right, from Wall Street or whatever the hell you'd find in New York City. She's dating a straight up fucking soap opera actor.
No.
Yeah. Face jock, gorgeous. Like I am a man with a staunch record of heterosexuality. And even I'm like, wow, you are fucking dreamy. God damn it. And I'm like green with like, you've got to be shitting me, right? Like this, you had to choose this guy and he's awesome.
That's
and
the
I
guy.
hear from, I also hear from a friend of a friend, he's really nice. And I'm like, I hate him so much. And I'm so jealous. And, And so I pulled the same move pretty much out of the bag, which was when I finally like got back in her good, not in her good graces, but like kind of got back in her life and said, let's try this again. And she still had like a date on the books with the guy. Like she was supposed to go to this red carpet event apparently with him, like in some like daytime Emmys scenario. And it was like, did she need to look for a dress kind of thing? And again, it was sort of like, well, I guess someone's got a choice to make. Yeah. But I don't think I could have actually done that, spur clinking move as we're kind of laughing, but like it did take a high level of self-esteem for me to go, this is a choice she has to make on her own. I can't do this for her. I can't make this choice for her. If I do, or I cajole her into this or I control her, then I'm not getting picked. I'm not getting chosen. And I might get the answer I want, but it won't be for the right reasons. And so I did give her space. The best part of the end of that story is what our listeners may not know is that I did have a stint as an actor for a very long time in New York. And I ended up booking a 4-episode arc on that very same soap opera where I had to stare opposite him for 2 days where we were
justice.
trading lines back and forth. And the best part was, now look, I'm not a tall man. You know, I'm like, on a good day, I'm 5'11", probably 6'2" with the hair. And they had to give him like some lifts to essentially, you know, I was like, okay, that makes me feel better. Yeah.
I'm rock hard for you. Just those are like the moments, you know.
They are.
Those are the moments.
They are. And I'm being a little petty, but that's because, you know, like, again, this guy was dreamy.
Well, listen, and I love that. Like, I love the point you made about your partner choosing you. And if you're making them choose you, they're not really choosing you.
That's right. That's right.
You know, and so you can't, and that's probably, I mean, maybe that's the answer to the question. That's the line between good jealousy and toxic jealousy. Are they choosing you, or are you making them choose you?
Right. Are you controlling? Are you cajoling? Are you trying to convince? And again, it's really hard. And this is the thing I tell my clients in the various situations that perhaps these types of things present themselves, is you want to be picked, and you want to allow them space to choose you, because then you know that you're chosen, and you know that you didn't do anything to try to manipulate that choice. Now you are, you know, entering into that zone of, you might not get the answer that you want. And again, that answer that you think you don't want is actually an answer that you needed. And so, as jealous as I was in those moments, I didn't allow the green eye of jealousy to necessarily control me, even though I wanted to, because I also knew that pushing her, it wouldn't have felt right in the long run. And to give her that space to like pick me, it really did in retrospect. And I'm telling these stories with great joy, because of the fact that, like, she did pick me.
Yeah.
I didn't ultimately have to be jealous. I didn't have to control her.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I love that. And I love that the universe gave you those moments where
it's beautiful, isn't it? But again, it's not like just some guy at the Napa. Well,
that's exactly right. Like, how many guys can say, my wife turned down Justin Timberlake for me?
Well, a lot of people just look at her and go, and then look at me and go, really? That was your choice? That dude seems like he's got it dialed in. This dude, I mean, not so much.
Right. Right. Yeah. Let's talk. I do want to talk a little bit about good jealousy, and like how good jealousy can be used, like in a relationship. How do you see that sort of manifesting and working in your benefit?
Well, you know, I think that when we notice our partners getting noticed, if it's in that physical sort of sexual way, or like around that attractiveness thing, or if you see somebody sort of, it can be a reminder. And that's why I see it sort of playing out with people as they navigate the different scenarios that these things might come up. And in a healthy way, couples will kind of have a laugh about it. They're able to say, no, I saw that. And, you know, and then it kind of made me feel a little pang of that, but it reminded me that this person is an awesome person, an amazing person, someone that I should be thankful for. It reignites some gratitude, perhaps, if I'm not taking it too far, that I think that it can have that positive effect, that it reminds me that this person that I have is someone that is desired, desirable, and wanted in the world, not just by me. And that, you know, maybe I should pay a little more attention to that. Again, I think sex and sexuality, connectivity, and that sort of tension and spark is one of the first things that goes away after the dopamine blast of new love goes away. And so couples will come running to me looking for, like, what happened? Did I make the right choice? What happened? What do we do? And with that, I say, look, we need the oxytocin swing. We can create more oxytocin in our brains by doing things like I talk about in the book, which is to choose each other, to pick each other, to reach and stretch for one another. And also noticing things like, oh yeah, look at that. she did get looked at in the Whole Foods line, or that it happened just the other day with us. We were, walking on the beach, and this guy was like, you could see he was like, bowled over by her and her beauty. And like, I was kind of like, that's right. Yeah. And then I took a second look, and I was like, shit, she is hot.
Dang.
Yeah.
Dang.
I'm up for it.
Yeah. I agree with you that external validation is, and it can sometimes be a little bit of a kick in the ass. Like, hey, look at, hold on, fresh eyes. Take a look at your partner for a second. Like really fresh eyes, and it gives you, it gives you that like nudge to like get out of your complacency and like really reflect on who you somehow landed, somehow. But also I think, it's interesting because when Corey is flirted with or hit on or something to that effect, while it does create that jealousy in me, and I do look at him that way, I also start reflecting on the things that I know about him. Like, and I'm sure it's similar with Ashley, where it's like, okay, yeah, he's a good looking dude, but also he's generous and he's kind and he's loving.
That's right.
And he's all those things that those people, they can look and see that Ashley is a fox, but she's giving and she's, brilliant and
kind
she's,
and sweet,
same with Corey. Yeah.
What you're
and
touching
so
into. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I feel like what you're touching into is, again, something that I talked about in the book, which is narrative, right? And
exactly.
When you hit that sort of pang of jealousy, perhaps, and that kind of reminds you of that your partner is someone you are fortunate to be with, it reignites that gratitude. What that does is it begins to shift and change the narrative. And I think the narrative, the stories that we tell about our partners are so important. It's one of the first things that starts to atrophy, and it's one of the last things we look at because it's so hard to look at our thoughts. They come and go so quickly, we don't think they're any big deal. But our thoughts become feelings, our feelings become thoughts, and before you know it, we have a belief system about our partner. And again, with familiarity, we very quickly can get to a boring narrative, a been there, done that kind of narrative. And when, again, you see it, it may be a little thing, but when you see someone kind of noticing or being attracted to your partner and you feel that pang of jealousy, it can reignite that narrative work. And you start looking and going, oh, just like you said, they are attractive, of course, and sexy and all the things, but they're also lovely and sweet and kind and generous. And man, how lucky am I that I get to be with this person? I don't think there's any better work to do within a relationship than work around the narrative. And it's one of the reasons why it lives actually as a cautionary tale in the book, because narrative work is not easy. It takes a lot of mindfulness to ferret it out, but things like little pangs of healthy jealousy can remind you of the narrative you're telling. And is it a good one?
Absolutely. I'm not sure what happened, but the recording just blinked, so I don't know if that means anything. But
no, that was on my phone.
No, it came up on my screen like a little purple thing.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, no, I, it's such a good point. Like, and I feel like in the practices, narrative and choosing, I mean, they're all important, but when you really start getting into the work of your relationship, they're such important pillars for a healthy relationship. And they're such an important thing to like, not to do consistently. And that's where it's like you said, when you have those pangs of jealousy, it allows you to pause, reflect, and be like, I really haven't thought about the story of my partner in a minute. Yeah, you're fucking right. He's great. Like, he's really fucking great. Like, or, like, I'm going to choose to blow him tonight. You know what I mean? Like,
you're really choosing him in that moment. Before we run out of time, I do want to talk about jealousy outside of romance. because I think we see a lot of that, especially in this day and age when, never before have we seen different, businesses, different jobs that we may have, different work that we're doing plastered across all sorts of social media where we can compare ourselves to everyone and everything else. We, everyone's sort of putting out their curb appeal, as it were, on all the different social media platforms saying, look at my life, look at this thing that I'm doing. Social media, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and all of them have given us this sort of carte blanche to say, hey, look at me now. Look at me go. And
such a good point.
And I think it does. And I would be lying if I said that didn't ever happen to me, because it has.
Absolutely.
You've experienced the same.
Oh my God. Absolutely. I've worked in social media. I know that behind the scenes thing that you're trying to capture, and a lot of it hinges on jealousy. It hinges on you want to make a group of people, as many people as possible, jealous of the narrative you've created about your life and how great it is, so that they follow you, and then companies will pay you.
That's true.
It's absolutely, social media is predicated on jealousy.
Right.
Yeah.
So you see that seeping into other relationships, and I've seen it seep into friendships and experienced it. And for me, I've kind of come to the conclusion, at least for me, if the jealousy that friends might have of you, or me in this case, is not something that they can sort of when it's sort of healthy jealousy, they're like, man, that's awesome. I'm so glad for you. I really wish that I could do that. Or, man, it made me jealous when I saw you do this thing, right? They're sort of naming it. They're sort of saying it. They're pulling the wool back on it and going, yeah, that's a pang of jealousy. So that feels really healthy. That feels really okay in my book. But when someone's holding on to jealousy, when someone, can't really cop to it, I've watched it kind of, manifest in not healthy ways and become almost resentful. And I've had friends who finally cop to it and say, why do you get so many cool things? And I want to be like, well, because I bust my ass, no one's handed me anything. But that narrative gets told in their head that I'm so not lucky, he's so lucky. And I think we can very, very quickly go to that place of bottoming out and letting it sort of bottom out our self-esteem. Why does that person get this, but I don't?
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Absolutely. I had a friend. I have a friend. He is, one of the kindest people I know. And he just puts kindness into the world. And because he does that, I firmly believe he has been successful at what he does in, helping people with their physical training and all this other stuff. But he said to me once, he said something, he had gotten something, some kind of whatever. And I think I said, I was like, I'm so jealous of this treadmill that you've been able to get. And he literally, he's like, Sarah, pause for a second and think about that. You're not happy for me. You're jealous. And I was like, holy shit, you're right. I didn't pause to think about, you've achieved this thing. I made it about me and what I didn't have. And it really changed the way I think about responding to my friends when they tell me something great.
It's a great point.
I have to be, here's another practice. I have to be super mindful of what is the first reaction I have? And if it's to say I'm jealous, that's not the right reaction.
It's not about them. It's about you. It's not about being happy for them. It's about being sad for you. Or, what's the deficiency in me? It's, I know he's a controversial figure, but sometimes controversial figures are pretty smart. Jordan Peterson said, you be careful the people you keep close to you, right? The people the people who are your friends are the people that you can tell bad, horrible things to, and they'll understand and all that. But your really good friends are the ones you can tell really good things to, and they'll celebrate you.
Yeah.
And that's a fair point, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting enough, like that lesson I learned before I even knew you is one that like changed, I feel like, the way you and I have interacted offline, where like I might have felt jealous, but because I did that work and I felt happy, it opened me to the things that you could offer me when I was ready. So for example, like when I said to you, oh, you know, my taxes, and you're like, here, I got a guy, you know, and things like that. Like when you start thinking about the other person and the happiness that they're experiencing and the success that they're experiencing, it opens a whole world where you first of all, you feel good, but you can also like learn from them and get advice from them. And it, instead of being resentful of somebody's success, now you're able to kind of learn how they got there and why they continue to be there and that sort of thing. And that's why, like, back to the conversation about social media, is like, it's not real. It's just not real. So like when you feel that jealousy towards somebody in your legitimate life, think about how their happiness can also be a benefit to your happiness, you know, and think about how you can learn from them, learn that happiness from them.
Well, Sarah, you know, what you're talking about is moving from a deficit perspective to an abundance perspective.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is huge. You know, I'm constantly talking to my clients about that. You know, very often I see it happening with, and this podcast is called Single on Purpose, but so you talk about people being single. And so I deal with a lot of singles trying to find relationships, and they'll see people who are getting into them. Their friends are getting married and they're having kids and they feel so behind and they get very, very jealous. And so there is this contraction that happens within the body and within the brain and within our energy field when we feel the pangs of jealousy. And so I'll very, very quickly say, right now you're entertaining this idea that your friends have something that you are incapable of having. And that's not true. It hasn't happened for you for various reasons at this particular point. And some of those actually might be good. And we want to shift, to your point, from this contracted deficit perspective to this place of abundance. And abundance means, and look, I think competition and living in a capitalistic society is sort of bred within us, this idea that there is only one winner and there's a bunch of losers. Right? And that, you know, that there is no second place and all of that. And so that is a contracted deficit perspective. When you think about it, as abundant as this country is and as abundant as this culture can be, it is a deficit. Probably why, you know, the richest is there's only 1%. People hold 99% of the money or whatever it is, or 90% of the money. It's this deficit perspective. And when you come from abundance and you slay the beast of jealousy and open your heart to the field of all possibilities and the fact that there is an abundance of everything in the world, if you choose to see it that way, then the person sitting next to you got the thing that you want. That just means that you got a little bit closer. Right? Yeah.
So true. Absolutely. And it can be applied. I mean, like you said, it can be applied across work. It can be applied across your career. It can be applied across your friendships, you know, and it can change the way that you interact with the world at large. So listen, we've covered a lot today.
I think we have.
We've really nailed the topic of jealousy.
I think we've really brought some insight and some intrigue and some hilarity, quite frankly.
Absolutely. We were still able to be a little inappropriate.
As we do at Not in Your Mama's Therapy. And I've been thinking about this tagline. What about therapy for those who need therapy but don't want therapy? I think that's what our show is really about.
I think you're onto something. I think you're absolutely right. I love it.
Okay.
Special thank you to John Kim, the Angry Therapist, for letting us hold this space on his channel. Yeah. At gunpoint. special thanks to him. Thank you so much for letting us share this space with you. Thank you to the listeners of The Angry Therapist for spending this time with us. You can find us at Not Your Mama's Therapy on all podcast channels if you want to come over and listen to us too. And
let's just say it may be a different vibe over there.
Listen, yeah, you're gonna hear some things. Okay, you're gonna
some things.
A lot of what we've shared today, you're gonna hear a lot more of that. A lot more of that.
And I can guarantee you're probably not going to be jealous of us.
Absolutely not. If you want a place where you can feel safe not being jealous, come on over to Not Your Mama's There.
I had a great time doing this with you, and I think it was a good topic, and I hope everybody enjoys it. If you can, come on over, check us out at Not Your Mama's Therapy on any podcast platform. Are you ready to sign out?
Exactly. Yeah.
I hope that episode was helpful. Hey, listen, if you want to share your singlehood journey, if you've gone somewhere and come back, if you have revelations and wisdom, please share your story. It's going to help other people. Nothing makes us feel more connected than hearing other people's stories. So just send me the audio of your story, and you could just record it directly from your phone and email it to theangrytherapist@gmail.com. Also, if you want our Single on Purpose newsletter, go to singleonpurpose.life. That's singleonpurpose.life. You will get tools and articles and other people's stories, and also Zoom links to private gathers. So if you want to join our community, go to singleonpurpose.life. Thank you for listening. Be well. We hope you tell a friend.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Diaz. I'm so excited to share with you guys the singlehood story, the true ups and downs of what it really feels like to go on this solo journey of self-love and self-discovery. I'm 27 years old, and personally, I have always been the gal that was in a long-term serious relationship. I'm sure so many of you guys are able to relate to that. And with that being said, my singlehood journey began with me being in a relationship. And I decided to be with someone when I told myself I wanted to be single. And I told him that from the beginning, that I really wanted to go on my journey of being alone for once, because I just got out of a relationship with a narcissist. I was dealing with PTSD. And for those of you guys that don't know, it's a fucking hell of a mental battle. But I'm in the recovery stages, and there's hope for those of you that are going through that. Anxiety, panic disorder, all of it, depression. You got this. You're killing it. And eventually I ended up leaving him, parting ways, and truly keeping my promise of being single. And through that journey, I discovered that I was holding myself back in ways because I would put my time into the relationship rather than in myself. And I had a lot of time to reflect on that, being alone. I became the third wheel in a lot of situations, and I learned how to enjoy my own company, which was very interesting and very fulfilling whenever you get to that place. I discovered that I always felt my voice wasn't heard in a relationship, and that I had to learn that in my friendships also, to open up about my insecurities and really dive deep, because the people that really care about you, they're open to listening, and they want to know, and they want to help you grow and be a better person. So my circle of friends grew smaller, but they're so strong. They uplifted me in so many ways. At the time of this, my mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And yeah, it sounds like I went through hell and back, and I really did. It was one of the hardest times of my life. But, we are all resilient. As human beings, we are made to keep fighting. And as hard as it was battling through all of that, I decided to keep on pursuing this self-love journey. And one thing that panic attacks taught me was I needed to take a lot of walks. And now I take mindful walks. I'll take walks in the morning. I go to the gym, not because I want something shallow, but because it's good for my mental health. And it makes me check in with my body. Doing yoga made me feel very present. And it was able to show me where I was really struggling with trauma. And it really helped me release it also. And it's very beautiful to see where things are stored. And then when you reflect and you have that little aha moment, and you're like, wow, it was from this. This is why I'm feeling this way. All these years, I had no idea why I would do this. And now I know. And an example of that is, personally, I always had the issue of getting into a relationship, and when things went south, I would end up thinking about an ex. I'm always hung up on an ex, or I used to be. Always hung up on an ex, and I couldn't be present in the relationship. So, if anything, my singlehood has taught me how to be a better partner. And one day I had the aha moment of, well, you're missing the communication in this relationship, and you missed it from the old partner that gave you that. And me going back to the old partner and still feeling the lack of love, I found out, no, this is something I need to focus on with this person. And it's not them. There's nothing wrong with the person in front of me. There's something going on internally that little Ashley wasn't heard from my narcissistic mother. And I know this is a lot to unload in these few minutes I'm sharing. But it's true, and it's raw and it's real. I didn't feel heard growing up because I was in an abusive household as well. But I found within that my voice wasn't being heard, and I really needed to feel heard in a relationship. And now moving forward, I know that I need to feel heard with everyone, and I started working on my own book. And I have been working on this book for years, but I wanted to stop it. But I remembered, no, I need to let my voice be heard. Her voice really wanted to be heard. And if it can help one person, hell, I'm down to do it. So I decided to take a chance, and I started writing. And boy, did it feel good. So whatever you're passionate about, whatever that passion is, and you know what it is inside, don't tell me you don't have a passion. We all know what it is. We're just too scared to voice it. We're too scared to do it. But what's it gonna do? Like, hell, you'll be scared as hell pushing those boundaries, but it's worth it at the end. It really is. And for me, my specialty is poetry. Hell, I did an open mic night. I went up there. I cried at the end, but I got an applause, and that meant the world to me. The audience being so supportive of me, people telling me, you need to keep doing this. You're so good. Your words are so powerful. That meant so much. So just giving it a little bit of positivity goes so far in today's society where we're all on our phones. These pieces of humanity, people, loving people, they're just so beautiful. And I'm so grateful for it. So the point is, take your chances in your singlehood. It's not as scary as you think. It's so beautiful. And don't be afraid to talk with yourself. It's quite enlightening. And hell, speak even if your voice shakes. Like, I know I can feel mine shaking right now because of so many emotions, because I'm still going through the singlehood right now. But it'll be worth it. You might surprise yourself and find that you do have the answers that you're looking for. And knowing that you're strong enough to go after those dreams you want, do those little things during the day that make you feel so happy. For me, it's writing, it's painting, it's watching a romantic comedy, things that I kind of saved to do with a partner. I did it by myself, and it was beautiful, a really beautiful thing, knowing that you can still feel happy and whole alone. And you're not really alone because you have yourself. And you've been with yourself since you were born. You have been there for yourself through it all. So if anyone could be called a best friend or a true love, it's yourself. Because heck, we stood by ourselves, right? But I hope this helped someone out there, and just lead with love. Thank you. Thanks for listening, you guys.